subject. We heard incredible figures, how quickly the renewables push their way forwards, and this certainly presupposes joint efforts. So what is your concept and your view in this aspect?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. And is it working? All fine? Good. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I will start by a thing that everybody is knowing about the energy trilemma, about having the energy secure, sustainable and affordable. Now, there is always some form of, let's say, trade-offs that you have to make between these three. In case of countries like Moldova particularly, we want to become a kind of a showcase of how a country which is in the most vulnerable probably situation, climate-wise, we're the most climate vulnerable country on the continent, from the point of view of economic welfare, we're one of the poorest country in Europe. From the point of view of proximity to war, because we're the next to Ukraine, from many points of view we're vulnerable, yet for us decarbonization is not a problem. For us decarbonization is an opportunity and is in fact the solution to how we can build our economy in a more in the trilemma, in solving the trilemma, let's say this trilemma: affordable, sustainable, and secure. Now, one thing.
Yes, it's okay.
Yes, good, because I don't hear it here. So one thing that I want to mention is you see the trend for energy consumption and electrification of everything, and the International Energy Agency mentions that electrification of consumption in both transport and in heating sector, cooling, etc., is going at a much higher speed than the total growth of energy consumption. Now, that electrification, coupled with technologies related to demand-side management, particularly coupling with IT technologies, with technologies related to smart metering, etc., they are able to give a fundamentally new type of solution to balancing the renewables. Because what today is happening, the traditional energy systems, they are going into, okay, the consumer does what he wants, and then the system behind the plug has to adapt. Now, consumers can and will in future have a much more active role due to the digitalization, due to smart metering, and due to algorithms that will decide whether now is the proper moment to charge your car or to start your heat pump, to preheat your water that you will use in the evening or maybe next day, or do use the battery of the car to power your house to not put pressure on the consumption in the grid when the electricity is expensive because it's not available on the renewables. So this is a totally new dimension, which is hardly, let's say, which I feel personally is extremely underappreciated, undervalued in terms of the potential, of its potential to integrate renewables. We must understand the cost of renewables, the cost of renewable energy. If you look at, if you take it into the lifetime cost of energy, is already cheaper, is already more competitive than fossil energy. And although in Europe, and I understand this narratives, and I think this is not fair, that the European Union sees the green transition as a rather a burden and an expensive thing, which undermines competitiveness, whereas fundamentally the cost of energy from renewables should be cheaper than cost of energy from fossil fuels. It is the balancing. It is the how do we match the consumption, production, and the different generation portfolio, including through interconnections. We heard today, I think here and also in the Greek pavilion, Prime Minister Mitsotakis of Greece talking and President Radev talking that there's always discrepancies in where the wind is, where when the wind blows, and there's little overlap between the wind, for instance, in Central and Northern Europe and South Europe. So this portfolio, a diversified portfolio of distributed renewables, plus good interconnections, plus flexibility in terms of demand-side management, with integrating and electrifying more of dispatchable type of consumption, is providing a unique combination where energy can actually become not only green but also affordable. And obviously, when you talk about industrialization, when you talk about base load, nuclear will still have to play a role. And although Moldova doesn't have any nuclear energy, we are totally supporting the pledge for increasing the renewables, for increasing the nuclear deployment. But fundamentally, there is no reason why a combination of distributed generation, interconnections, relatively cheap storage, because, and I'm not talking batteries, but I'm talking about this pumping storage facilities that are already existing and can be upgraded, and using the cars and the as a batteries on wheels, electric cars as batteries on wheel. Why this combination cannot provide a long-term solution to the trilemma? Moreover, in my opinion, again, this is all not possible without the private sector and without an active consumer. I think for a long time we have undermined or underestimated the importance of the role of the active consumer. We have tried to adjust the system, the energy system, particularly the electric system, to the consumption, and less have done to enable the consumer to adjust its behavior towards the needs of the system.
Okay.
And I think this is a road less traveled, which can be traveled, much like what was happening with the sorting of the waste. Now it's normal everywhere in Europe that people are sorting their waste so that it doesn't have to be sorted at a dump. Yeah. It will happen the same with the energy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Victor. I just wanted to mention in this context that this trilemma, but from another perspective, that is politicians, business and consumers, certainly has to also be reviewed in many ways, because the market and the type of the market and the relations are changing so quickly that they demand much more interactivity between these three parts of the society. Now we shall come back to the consumers, but from another perspective, and I will ask a provocative question to our next speaker. This is Mrs. Borrero from the European Commission. In fact, let me first of all mention that when I read the positions of the incoming commissioners, I noted very substantial changes in the titles, and I think they are very indicative, those who are linked to energy. Firstly, there's a Vice President of the Commission, Teresa Rodriguez, and her position is related to clean, just, and competitive transition. Second, the Energy Commissioner is Commissioner for Energy and Housing, and when it comes to the third Commissioner, he's one who is dealing with climate, net zero, and clean growth. And I think that the titles themselves are very, very indicative in this concept. But when it comes to the role of the consumers, let me mention one other issue, and I will quote the incoming Commissioner for Energy and Housing. He was last week in the European Parliament, where he said, and I'm quoting now, that he will pursue electricity prices, quote, to shield vulnerable customers. And I think this is an issue which is very, very important, that the effect of the reforms should definitely shield the customers also from the point of view of an issue which is very important throughout Europe. It's not only for small countries like Moldova and so on concerning energy poverty. So, Mrs. Borrero, thank you very much once again for being with us. Tell us what, in your view, will be the biggest challenges in front of the Commission and particularly your directorate. Let me also recall in this aspect that the last elections of the European Parliament resulted in decrease of the political support for the Green Deal. There were almost 50 seats lost. I think Renew Europe and the Greens, I think altogether, both lost about 50 seats. So it's a challenge. What is your perception of all this?
Well, thank you very much for inviting the Commission, in particular DG Energy. It's a very difficult question, but I try to give you all the element that I have at this stage. Let us start by the political momentum that we are facing now. You were very right. We are now in the transition from one college to another. And you're right, it's very significant how the President of the Commission decided somehow to give very clear names to the portfolio of the Commissioner that will reflect the direction of the travel. But the direction of the travel was previously fixed in her political orientation and guidelines. So allow me to highlight maybe three main principles. I don't think that now in the European Union, at least at the Commission and Member State discussion level, nobody questions the need to advance in the energy transition, the need to advance on the Green Deal targets. But what the President of the Commission said in a very clear way is that we enter into a new phase of the Green Deal. It's how we implement the Green Deal. And for that we need to ensure competitiveness for the European industry, and we need to ensure affordable prices for consumers and for industry. And this is, in our view, the real challenge. The new Commissioner designate, the Commissioner Dan Jorgensen, if everything goes well, so we hope that the new Commission will be endorsed as soon as possible by the European Parliament, but obviously I cannot prejudge. This is, the MEPs are sovereign for that, but if everything goes well, the President of the Commission has indicated to the Commission designate that in the first 100 days he will have to present to the Commission for discussion and for publication an affordability plan. So she was very clear that the main priority for Commission designate will be to make energy prices affordable. And for that, she also said, well, let's follow now Professor Draghi report, where we have very clear indication on the direction of the travel. This is not easy, obviously, and the Minister, you mentioned the trilemma, because obviously we cannot backtrack on the trilemma, but I think that we can reflect on how we get there. So it's not the what, but how we get there. We need, obviously, to explore some mechanism that the Commission already worked, in particular during the crisis. This is my second point that is very important to highlight. We cannot forget that during the last 2 years, we had in the European Union, we suffered one of the most relevant energy crises provoked by the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. This crisis was twofold, security of supply, but also energy prices. And we did basically two things. The first one is to diversify, so we need more diversification. We did it for gas, but we need to do it also for renewables, critical raw minerals, and we need also to advance the energy transition. For a very simple reason. In the European Union, we do not produce. I mean, there is also a sustainability issue, but we are not fossil fuel producers. So we need to be able to advance. There is a concept that everybody likes very much, strategic autonomy. I don't think that we could be completely autonomous when it comes to energy, obviously, because as far as we advance on renewables, we need critical energy transition minerals. And as you know, these minerals are not in the European Union. Most of them are Latin America and Africa and are processed at 80% in China. So just to give you, we need to work also on these dependencies. My third point is obviously a point that all the political groups have highlighted in the Parliament, is that the energy transition has to be done in a very fair and just way. And we have today two funds in the European Union, the Just Transition Fund and the Climate Fund. Maybe it's not enough. We need to continue working in particular on the energy poverty, on the most vulnerable consumer, but in parallel on competitiveness of the industry. And for that, I think we have some mechanism in the Commission, maybe to flag a couple of mechanisms that Professor Draghi has mentioned in his report. We need to go for more cooperation, more interconnection, more internal market on energy. The European Union is not fully connected yet, so we have our Connecting Europe facility mechanism, but we need to advance on that. And we need also to explore other mechanisms. Why not to go for some joint procurement of critical raw minerals, hydrogen, how to support much and better the production of renewable hydrogen, but low carbon hydrogen also in the transition. So I think that these are very clear indication that the European Commission will have to work over the next 5 years. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I like very much your message that the goals are the same, they are there. What is important is to review the mechanisms, how we reach these goals, having in mind the changes which occur. And talking about changes, I don't think that there is anyone better who can comment on that. But Kristian Ruby, who represents Eurelectric, maybe you know Eurelectric is Association of Associations, but company-wise it refers to more than 3,500 companies as far as I recall, and it jumps well beyond the European Union in this context. By the way, yesterday we a little bit discussed with him, is he my boss or am I his boss, because I'm on the board of directors of Eurelectric still, but I will assume now as a moderator that you are my boss, and I give you the floor to tell us how you see things in this context from the perspective of the big and different type of business which you represent.
Thank you, Slavko. Thank you, boss. So I think we're at a very interesting moment where, as we heard, there's a consensus on the direction of travel towards a very rapid implementation of the green targets. The question now is, how do we ensure competitiveness while sustaining a proper business case for the continued investments in the transformation of the electricity system? The energy crisis that we lived through in the past 2 years basically resulted in a significant and very spontaneous effort to save energy at consumer level, but we also saw, unfortunately, some real deindustrialization. We've seen a significant drop in demand for electricity as a consequence, and what does that mean? If there's less demand for a product and more supply, because we are putting a lot of additional renewables on the system, we get an imbalance between supply and demand potentially. So we're at a moment where we need to find out how we, on the one hand, can make sure that that we provide competitively priced energy to the businesses of Europe, and at the same time allow for continued investments in the sector. It's not a given at this point in time. We've seen many investors walk away from big projects, and we're seeing, in some cases, a saturation of demand. So we need to urgently work on electrification of those industries still relying on fossil fuels. We need to work on the interconnectors we heard about, and we need to make sure that there are proper investment signals, both for the storage technologies, for the flexible technologies that are needed on the system, and for additional renewables. This is in essence the task, while at the same time making sure that we pass through the benefits of cheap renewables to the industrial consumers. We have some answers in the Draghi report. We also have some things where we need to be careful because additional burdens of administration, additional red tape on the sector could actually increase prices rather than lower them. So we need to be very careful about exactly how these new measures are implemented and how we transition to more attractively priced electricity. I do want to say, however, that the savings potential of electricity compared to fossil fuels is very, very significant. We estimate with this rapid transition, we can actually save round about 300 billion euros every single year in the 2040s in avoided imports of fossil fuels. So this will strengthen our energy independence, and it will improve our competitiveness situation overall if we do it right. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Kristian. Just one very quick comment, because both you and Christina made reference to the Draghi report. Yesterday, Mr. Julian Popov, who is a former Bulgarian minister, made it very clear that unfortunately Southeastern Europe and Central Europe are not the focus of the report. And I wish both the Commission and also in your studies, Kristian, next time when you work on these issues, to pay more attention on Southeastern Europe. I think that we definitely deserve it, and there are a lot of reasons for that. The second thing which you mentioned, Kristian, was that there might be a kind of disbalance occurring when we import, so to say, into the system more and more renewables. And I think that there's hardly a better person than Konstantinos to tell us, as a representative of a company which is a Greek company, but which is part of a MITA structure, which is not only in Greece, with his experience and the experience of his company about the role of renewables in this context. And Konstantinos, I will be very grateful to you if you can share not only your view about Greece, your views concerning Greece, but also a little bit also in the regional perspective, and just to share with us what are kind of the key challenges in this aspect from your perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I wasn't about to discuss on Greece because PPC itself, it's running its green transition, its Green Deal. So we are already present in the whole corridor of Southeastern Europe, and that's how we view the whole strategy on a corporate level and on a European level. So we are talking about a unified electrical space. So speaking about the role of renewables and the future itself, renewables are the future. And although we are seeing on the results of the US elections and many people are being skeptical on what's coming next, what I can say is this is not going back. And if you look at Bloomberg today, taking into consideration the electricity prices today as well, you would see that the way renewables are moving by 2035 we will have double or triple the size of what's happening today. So one thing is the unification of the electricity space in Europe. Another thing is our own strategy that focuses on the corridor. We are already working on Romania, Bulgaria, Croatia, Albania, Italy, and Greece. 40% of the grids in Europe are 40 years old. So if you think of that, and if you look at the Eurelectric report on grids for speed, we need to keep investing 65 billion per year until 2050 to make things happen. And we are talking about millions and billions and trillions, taking us into a figure that is 7 trillion per year, 7 trillions per year on a global level by 2050 to realize the energy transition itself. Coming back to your initial question about the role of renewables, I'd like to say that there is no cheaper electricity than the green one. So the green kilowatt hour produced is the cheapest form of energy as we speak, and this will not change. So we need to keep focusing, we need to keep working. I heard very carefully the previous speakers focusing on the Draghi report. I'd like to add on this the Enrico Letta report, because speaking about competitiveness and free movement within the European Union, these two reports are flagging up what we need to do on the near future and on the long-term future. So we need to work on competitiveness, we need to provide cheap electricity to make Europe competitive, and I'm not speaking only about the European Union, but Europe as a geographical area, to provide cheap electricity to the industry, and that will take us to the next level. So in a nutshell, we need to keep investing on renewables, we need to keep investing on grids, and this we need to do it massively in the years to come. We need to keep investing on battery system, and last but not least, and Kristian mentioned that, we need to work on flexible generation, because we need to have adjacent technologies and fight the stochastic nature of renewables themselves. Thank you very much, and this is a great honor of contributing to this panel.
Well, thank you very much, Konstantinos. I personally definitely agree with everything which you said, but I just want to tell you that we are not only very good partners in the energy sector, but we also have some different views at national level. And one of the sensitive issues which we are following what you are doing is coal. You have a law in your country about phasing out coal completely next year. Right. In Bulgaria, we have a huge political, policy, whatever you wish, problems. And I don't want to open this debate. I just want to mention it, that it is there. Further to this, throughout the European Union, there are quite a lot of people, politicians and so on, who want to completely phase out the Green Deal, if I may say so. This is also something which you can hear. And this is a fact which one should take into consideration when giving more and more arguments like those which you gave. I think that we all can contribute with further argumentation in this aspect, but I just wanted to mention that the story is not black and white currently in this aspect. Now, one thing which you mentioned, which I like very much, is the flexible approach towards generation. And now I'm looking to the representative of the National Electricity Company in Bulgaria, Martin. When it comes to flexibility in Bulgaria, let me just mention a few things. Further to the coal story, we have also nuclear, and we have very extensive plans at national, at least at political level currently, to expand it. Further to that, we have the Chaira pump storage facility, which is quite a capacity, and there are ideas for building more. So can you just give us your views how this energy security issue from the point of view of the diversification of the generation process looks in the context of Bulgaria, in the context of pricing, and how does it influence the regional energy stability? Please.
So, Mr. Nekov, thank you, and thank you very much for giving the direction about regional aspect also, because we know that markets in Europe are quite already interconnected, coupled, so balances and specifics are not anymore seen only on country level, but rather on regional level. And together with Greece and with Romania, our neighbors, the countries have different approaches for decarbonization, mainly based on the fastest technology to be deployed, photovoltaic. So there is, depending on the countries, in the last 3.5 years, 3 to 4 times increase of the photovoltaic capacities which are installed and which are already in many periods exceeding actually the consumption in the country in these periods, which is visible, very much visible in the periods when photovoltaic produces, and especially in some, let's say, spring or interim periods of consumption when it's reduced. It's positive here that the market signals and instruments actually work properly in this case, not for investors in renewables, but overall for the market. And we experience more and more frequency negative prices on the markets, on the day-ahead markets, on intraday markets, which is a very clear signal that there is a need for flexible generation and more specifically or in larger scale for storage of energy in order to be able this cheap renewable energy to be transferred to the periods when the consumers need it, unless the consumers do not change their habits, of course, but we see that this happens somehow more difficult. And when we speak about storage, currently worldwide around 95% of the storage capacity is pump storage, hydro pump storage. Of course, there is extremely fast increase of the battery-based energy storage, but still we know that on one hand side the two technologies complement each other. They're different. One of them is batteries short-term storage, also have more limited lifetime, while the pump storage can help also in several consecutive days without sun or more days with extreme sun to accumulate energy, and sometimes the larger reservoirs even between the seasons, which is also quite crucial because energy consumption differs a lot also seasonally, on seasonal level, not only within the 24 hours of the day. So in this aspect, and being operator of close to 2 terawatt hours of storage capacity, we firmly believe, we understand our role and firmly believe in the future. And this is why we are focusing significant efforts on the recovery of the pump storage share, which is, as you mentioned, quite significant, not only for our region, but even on European level. And additionally, we are quite advanced together with the support of the European Investment Bank in the development of 2 additional pump storage hydropower plants in Bulgaria, which would really support the transition to green, low-carbon future, and to give a boost for further investments in renewable energy sources, which would provide the necessary needs for the consumers in these countries. So this is more or less our focus and role, which we see in the decarbonization.
Right. As we have to finish in a while, I want to ask each one of you about your opinion on one question. This is the link between the development of renewables in all its aspects, the liberalization of the markets process, and the protection of the consumers. So what is your view? Are these things these aspects in conflict? Are they supporting each other? And what would you do as to improve the situation so each of these aspects is being adequately developed forward? I will start with the Minister because he's facing this question every day.
Yes, thank you very much. Indeed, there is an apparent conflict between market prices and market signals, which provide short-term prices with very long-term payback periods and investment cycles in the energy infrastructure. But the market has learned how to deal with this. This is the contracts for differences, the mechanisms that are being introduced to basically leave the market and leave the pricing signals to drive the consumption and the competition between different sources on one side, and on the other side provide the long-term pricing guarantees for investments in the renewables particularly is a good interim solution, is a good solution in fact. Now indeed there is an issue, and I fully support, and this is exactly what I also mentioned. There is this fact that long-term cost of energy from renewables is cheap and is cheaper than fossil and is going down, in fact. That is why today when we talk about solving the trilemma of creating a market, how the liberalization of the market and pricing signals incentivize this green transition. We should be more talking, and this is exactly why I mentioned so much about the role of the consumers. When I mentioned the role of the consumers, it's not so much that the consumer will stay and will switch on and off things. It will be probably algorithms in your smartphone that will do that. But we need to use the infrastructure and use the existing IT technologies to basically create the other side, or to adapt the consumption side. That would allow us to integrate much more cheaper energy into the system, and both protect the consumers, the vulnerable consumers, create competitiveness, and at the same time maintain the rhythm and probably even accelerate the rhythm of integrating the green energy. For Moldova, and this is why I started to say that Moldova is a good example of that, because we don't have anything else. Simply because we don't have anything else. So we have to live with what we have. And for Moldova, it's not even a matter of choice. Both Romania and Ukraine have nuclear, both Romania and Ukraine have massive hydro, both Romania and Ukraine have gas, both Romania and Ukraine have oil, both Romania and Ukraine have coal. We are sandwiched between the two. We have nothing of this. And we want to create a common market, and we are integrating in the common market. There is nothing else that we can contribute to this meaningfully than renewables. And these renewables, in order to keep, your system functioning, you need to balance. If you cannot balance it on the production side, you need to foster the options on the demand side. Okay. Simple.
Thank you very much. By the way, we wish you all the best in your negotiations with the Commission about your way forward to the EU membership. It's really a huge step. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mrs. Borrero, how does things look from your perspective in this trilemma this time? Liberalization, more renewables, protection of the consumers. Please shortly.
Very short, but maybe I would like to comment on one of your comments that you made before. I can assure you that Central and the Southeastern member states of the European Union are very much at the core of the work that we do in DG Energy every day. So this is something that I wanted to highlight. Obviously, we had to continue working because the challenges you had to face are not the same that other member states have to face. I very much agree with the Minister. I think the trilemma we mentioned is there. And for me, in the European Union, we have all worked together to settle the right basis to advance in that direction. 2 examples, the electricity market design. For me, the contract for difference and the PPA will be fundamental to make prices lower and more affordable, and also to allow more penetration of renewable in the system. Today in the European Union, and this is a figure that I always like to share with everyone. Today, electricity in the European Union, 50% is still fossil, but 50% come from renewables.
Okay.
And if we look behind us, this is an enormous success. And this has been the result of a strong work with member states, with stakeholders. So maybe there is only half path, but we need to continue working on that. Very important, the protection of consumer, but I think that we have also worked very much on that. We are not there yet, but I think that today, what we experience during the crisis, gas continued to be, unfortunately, very relevant in the formation of electricity prices. So I think that the direction of the travel, again, is very clear. How we get there requires more work and maybe even more initiative, but I think that we all know which is the goal we want to achieve.
Well, just to reply to your comment about my comment, it was not criticism towards the Commission, but it should have not been me as a moderator if I don't provoke you. Now, right. Kristian, how does this trilemma look from the perspective of Eurelectric? You make, by the way, fabulous reports, fabulous analysis. Please brief us on your view.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think what's very important to keep in mind also when scrutinizing the Mario Draghi report is that things have actually changed quite substantially over the past few years. Mario Draghi analyzes the period 2021 to 23 when we had the most intense energy crisis. If we look from January this year and at the past months, we've seen a number of trends that need to be regarded in relation to what measures we put in place. First off, we have a massive influx of renewables on the system, which has a downward pressure on prices. Secondly, prices have been consolidating in part due to the increased supply, in part due to the waning demand. Third, we are experiencing an increase in the amount of negative price hours on the system. That in itself is not a bad thing, but it's basically testimony to the impact of renewables. So the political measures need to be adapted to this situation, which is, in my view, indicative of what is coming at us going forward. And at the same time, we should make sure that we implement those price stabilizing measures that were mentioned also by the Commission. The question is, how do we find the sweet spot for PPAs that is both attractive for the consuming industries and for the power sector, so that there is, let's say, a viable business case on both sides. And then I think when we talk about end consumers, private households in relation to energy prices, the one thing we really need to keep our focus on for the coming months is the price of gas, because this is for any household a big game changer, even more so than electricity, I would say, because that's directly related to the ability to heat your home, and this is where the pain is most imminent for the normal household consumer.
Thank you very much. Konstantinos?
Yeah. I think the main points have been covered. What I want to add and be a bit emphatic on this is that the energy transition is an ongoing process. It will take 5 to 10 years to be optimized, I mean, with batteries, flexible generation, and so on and so forth. So we are talking about political decisions that need to reassure two things, mainly two things only. One is steady and fair regulation to be there for the next years. And the second would be political decisions on the protection of the end consumer. Why? Because there will be spikes, there will be negative prices, there will be volatility in the market until everything is being optimized. So decarbonization, decentralized production from renewables and digitization will take place in the years to come. We need to make sure from a political level, on a European perspective, that this goes smoothly.
Thank you very much. Martin?
I'm of the opinion that the three elements of the trilemma actually complement each other quite well. Of course, the market gives signals to investors. Too much investment results in the market, so it's again new signal to other type of investors or other technologies. And the consumers, of course, actually being the the reason for production and delivery of electricity at the end of the day needs to be in extreme cases like 22 with some instruments and measures protected, but overall should be, in my opinion, somehow patient, let's say a bit patient, and believing that this period is investment for them, which at the end of the day will result to much more competitive prices for them.
Thank you very much to all of you. I'm now about to wrap in few points what I heard. Firstly, it is crucial that politicians and decision makers in general term do not forget what the Green Deal started with. All these reforms are in the name of the people. Now we call them consumers, we include here also not only households, we include the business, but the social issue in all this aspect is currently there, and Konstantinos was absolutely right in the sense that this should be paid particular attention in this transition period, not only in short term but also as a projection. The second thing is that goals are there, they are clear, but the decision makers, with the support of the European Union, the Commission and other bodies, should as soon as possible review and update the means, the way forward, how these goals should be achieved. Interconnectivity was definitely, and which is linked to the market, was referred to. It's good that Kristian made a reference not only to electricity but also to gas in this context, which we should not forget. And I would like to add one last point from my side. I think that we have throughout Europe a problem of communication with the citizens about these reforms, about the goals, the effectiveness, the role, who does what, also about what Victor mentioned, about the role of the consumers themselves in this process. Because normally, when politicians want to be a little bit more populistic, what they say is, Brussels said so, we have to do it. Sofia is also Brussels. Chisinau is also Brussels. And we should not, Athens is also Brussels. And we should not forget that. Well, thank you very much for being very concise with the kind agreement of our hosts. We expanded 10 minutes at the time. We in fact are 2 minutes earlier. So I'm now going to ask our audience to give applause to you for being here and for sharing your views so directly and straightforward.